Warm greetings. Today is Saturday, August 22, 2026. This is meteorologist Ruben Garcia. So far, the hurricane season in the Atlantic Ocean has been less active than normal. With the formation of three short-lived tropical storms that remained weak, Arthur and Bertha developed in the northern Gulf of Mexico without causing major problems, while the short-lived tropical storm Cristobal formed over waters in the North Atlantic. So we have definitely seen a less active than normal hurricane season, which was anticipated due to the El Niño phenomenon in the Pacific. Nevertheless, we are now at the peak of the season, which extends through mid-October. This is important because during the next few weeks we anticipate the formation of some storms, and at some point some of them will manage to strengthen into hurricanes. So it is important that we all be prepared in case a cyclone threatens the area where we live. And as you will see in the next few minutes, a tropical wave that will emerge from Africa on Monday will be a candidate to strengthen into the first hurricane of the season. And in this video I will talk about the track and intensity projections and whether it could eventually pose any risk to the northeastern Caribbean or the southwestern Atlantic region. In addition, the National Hurricane Center is monitoring two areas of low pressure in the North Atlantic, which could acquire some tropical organization. And at 8 p.m., the National Hurricane Center increased the development probabilities of the low pressure area located in the central subtropical Atlantic to 30%. But notice that it is projected to maintain a track over Atlantic waters, passing east of the island of Bermuda and posing no threat to land areas. Meanwhile, another low-pressure area located several hundred kilometers east-northeast of the Azores has a 20% chance of development during the next 48 hours. However, beginning Monday, the chances of development will begin to decrease just before reaching Portugal and northwestern Spain. And the third area of interest is located in the tropical Atlantic, where the National Hurricane Center has increased the chances of tropical cyclone development associated with a strong tropical wave that will emerge from Africa to 40%. In general, remember that due to the effects of El Niño, the favored area for the formation and strengthening of cyclones is the Central Pacific and the Eastern Pacific, where the atmosphere is projected to have a lot of instability during the next 2 months, which should create favorable conditions for cyclone formation, just as we have seen during the past few weeks. And although instability is not favored in the Atlantic region, from time to time we will have some Kelvin waves moving from the Pacific and across the Atlantic, which can occasionally open windows of opportunity for development. And remember that the main effect of the El Niño phenomenon that has helped keep tropical cyclone activity below normal in the Atlantic is the wind shear moving across the Caribbean Sea, which especially protects the Caribbean region. And if it were not for the El Niño phenomenon, we would probably have an active season because sea surface temperatures throughout the North Atlantic are above normal. For example, the main development region, which extends from the Caribbean to Africa, currently ranks third among the highest anomalies recorded since 1991. And in particular, the subtropical Atlantic on average remains at record temperatures for this date. And in this image you can see the areas that have record temperatures for this date. And to review, although the El Niño phenomenon reduces tropical cyclone activity across the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico, typically during El Niño years, tropical cyclone activity tends to focus on the southwestern Atlantic, which is precisely the area with temperatures at record levels for this date. This is important because some long-range projections suggest that there is a possibility that the tropical wave that will emerge from Africa will eventually strengthen into the first hurricane of the season, but if that happens, it will probably be in the southwestern Atlantic. Now, let's see what the latest runs of the global models show, because we have a major contrast between the traditional models and the artificial intelligence models. Let's begin with the most recent run of the American model, which forecasts that by Tuesday night we will already have a tropical depression developing south of the Cabo Verde Islands, and in this run it keeps the system strengthening as it moves west-northwest, passing well away from the Caribbean region, and potentially strengthening into a Category 2 hurricane beginning next weekend. As it passes near the island of Bermuda, look at this image showing the projected infrared satellite imagery according to the latest run of the American model. You can see that it projects a fairly intense hurricane with a defined eye and a structure characteristic of Category 2 or Category 3 hurricanes. Nevertheless, on some occasions, such as in today's midday run, the American model kept the system much weaker and therefore traveling farther west, however, being affected by wind shear. In the midday run it had barely a tropical wave passing just northeast of the Caribbean. So definitely a major difference between today's midday run and today's afternoon run, which shows the first hurricane of the season. Compare the projected infrared satellite imagery from today's afternoon run with that of today's midday run, which had barely a tropical wave crossing the northeastern Caribbean. Interestingly, the artificial intelligence version of the American model has a strong tropical wave crossing over the northeastern Caribbean. So here we already have a clear example of the difference between the traditional model and the artificial intelligence version. This pattern repeats itself with the other models. For example, the European model in today's midday run has a tropical storm developing between the Caribbean and Africa in approximately 6 to 7 days, but maintaining a west-northwest track, and it is not until it reaches the southwestern Atlantic region that it manages to strengthen into a hurricane, potentially a Category 2 or Category 3 hurricane, passing very close to the island of Bermuda. But just as we saw with the American model, the artificial intelligence version of the European model barely has a tropical wave crossing over the northeastern Caribbean. So definitely a major contrast and a clear indication of the uncertainty that exists because this is a long-range forecast. If we look at the ensemble members of the American model, in general, all of them develop a tropical storm, although they keep it relatively weak during the next 7 days. The vast majority agree that it should pass northeast of the Caribbean. While in the case of the European model ensemble members, they have a weak system during the next 7 days, but eventually strengthen it into a hurricane in the central subtropical Atlantic, and all of them keep it on a track away from the Caribbean region. In contrast, the ensemble members of the artificial intelligence version of the European model keep the system fairly weak. In fact, most of them do not even develop a tropical cyclone, and those that do show development, for the most part, take it northeast of the Caribbean. The Google DeepMind's artificial intelligence model, one of the versions, takes between 7 to 8 days to develop the tropical wave, but eventually strengthens it into the first hurricane of the season, threatening the island of Bermuda, but remaining north-northeast of the Caribbean. The other version of the DeepMind model has a weaker system, and it is not until it reaches near the Bahamas that it might acquire some organization. So in summary, what can we conclude? First, it is very likely that we will see the development of at least a tropical depression or tropical storm between the Caribbean and Africa, associated with the next tropical wave that will emerge on Monday. But there is still uncertainty regarding how much it could strengthen during the next 7 to 8 days. A weaker system could travel farther west and, if it remains a tropical wave, could bring an increase in rainfall to the northeastern Caribbean. However, if it strengthens into a strong tropical storm or hurricane, it will likely maintain a track away from the Caribbean. So for now, there is no reason for concern in the eastern Caribbean. We will simply monitor the evolution of the disturbance and will have many days to observe it. It is very likely that we will have to wait until it emerges from Africa for the models to have better consensus on what its future track and intensity could be. Remember, this is completely normal, especially because we are at the peak of the season. And once again, I invite everyone to be prepared in case a storm or hurricane eventually threatens the region where you live. Here at Hurricane Info, I will continue monitoring it closely to keep you informed, and tomorrow I will record a video to talk about the high tropical cyclone activity that we anticipate in the Western Pacific during the next 10 days. And so that you can stay informed, and if you like this content, I invite you to give this video a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so that you receive notifications when I record new videos. I hope everyone has an excellent weekend. See you tomorrow.